First of all, I'd like to thank our host Samson for again making this possible. You have a great office over here, and the way you have hosted this is incredible. Thank you again for having me. A big round of thanks, as Arjun said, to our sponsors, Visa, Infineon, Trustee, Octa, and of course Samsung. Without their involvement, we wouldn't be able to host this today. And this is one of the first steps we are taking to make sure that we come out of the metaverse, what June calls it, that COVID-induced virtual reality, to meeting face-to-face and doing networking and talking about innovative ideas and exchanging our thoughts within us. I would like to start with a small story about how we came here. We often talk about it. When we started about 1.5 years ago, we had only 3 or 4 members of our team. June has been one of our greatest supporters, and with help from people like Shankar and Amit sir, we have been able to get here today where we have a room almost full over here. Our hard journey was to make sure that we are reaching out to most of the enterprises who are working on FIDO, and we are able to bring them under the same umbrella in India. I see this as an inflection point today. We have done the hard part of having people come under the umbrella and let's discuss about FIDO. But from where we go today would probably define the journey of FIDO India working group. And for the next few years, we have to be more action oriented. We need to see how we can not only talk about it, but also broadcast the message, open up new participations, open new initiatives to actually engage more of our partners, our stakeholders into our journey. This is what our process is today, and the FIDO India Developer Challenge actually provides a fantastic platform for that. The innovative ideas, some of them which I have personally attending to some of the presentations, and they are simply awesome. And India, if we can showcase this innovation and we can build on top of this innovation, I'm pretty sure we do not need to do all the efforts. Our work, our innovation, our intelligence would speak on behalf of us. With that, I welcome everyone to the FIDO India Developer Challenge program. Thank you.
Yeah, namaste. Hello everyone. Very warm welcome to all FIDO the Alliance members. It's a great honor for us to provide our place as the venue for this event, and also sponsor Samsung devices as Gift Pro FIDO Developer Challenge members. I am KY Lu, Managing Director of Samsung Research Noida. Let me introduce Samsung Research Noida shortly. We started our operation in India from 2007. This year is the 16th year. We built up one Samsung R&D team with a Korea headquarters and the other global overseas R&D centers. And we are now the major R&D center doing research and development of Samsung mobile devices and services also. I can proudly say that our R&D center is #1 expert on R&D center for Samsung mobile business. Recently, we focused a lot and we became the major R&D center for Samsung Health. Also became the R&D center for Samsung Knox, which is a security solution for our Samsung devices. We also collaborate with IIT Delhi and many brilliant Indian startups for our mobile users experience more in niche, the mobile users experiences. I'm sure that many of our engineers also are very interested in FIDO Developer Challenge. as I know, it's the first FIDO developer challenge in India, right? The FIDO developer challenge is a truly unique program for students and the developers. It is a great platform for creating and innovating applications that leverage FIDO, the standards and the technology. Congratulations and welcome again for the top 3 finalists. Monitor exam, IAN works, and all safe. Am I right?
Yes.
the pronunciation, right? Hope to see all the creative ideas and the solutions during today's challenge. And once again, welcome and have a great and meaningful time. Thank you. धन्यवाद.
I welcome you all here. I am Ashish Banati and I am Deputy Controller in Office of CCA, Ministry of Electronics and IT. CCA is it's a regulatory body which regulates the operations of issue of digital signatures in India. And we have at present about 21 certifying authorities which have been issued the license here. And personally, if you see my background, I have about 32 years of more than 3 decades of working experience in the government. And presently, the last 20 years I've been associated with the smart card industry, and I recognize a few faces. We've been associated with Samsung R&D also for integration of iris biometric in their Samsung tab, and visited their premises in NEBZ nearby the new setup 62 also, I believe, the Bangalore office of Samsung. So a lot of work was done during that period of time, and at STQC I established the biometric test lab for issuance of certification to the biometric devices. And so majorly the work area has been testing, quality and all that. So 32 years. Recently, last 4 years I've been with CCA office, and here there were certain issues. Initially when I joined, there were about 8 CAs, certifying authorities, and now we have 21. The use of digital signature have more than doubled during the pandemic times, and more so now we were seeing that since token vendors are also part of the ecosystem of our CCA system and all. So there were issues when people used to tell us that there are when we plug in, so some issue with the driver or platform specific issues were there. So now we are trying to develop a common API which is platform independent. The work is almost done, and one of the vendors we have who are from FIDO, I think Precision is represented here. So they also wanted to be part of that. So we've been able to more or less now accommodate the FIDO token also into the common API thing, though it was unique and maybe it's an experimental thing, but we are onto it. So for the sake of the security, enhanced security because of the FIDO devices, so we are trying to integrate those also. So that's the thing that brings me here, and I congratulate the top three teams who have been able to make on this event. Thank you.
All right, so I don't think we can say thank you enough. So thank you again to our sponsors, and certainly thank you to Samsung again for hosting. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you. So I'm going to give you an update on what's going on with FIDO. I'm sure some of you have heard some of this before, but I think it's good just to have the whole context that helps put together kind of why we're here, what we're focused on, and give you an idea of what we've been working on lately and where we think things are going in the near future. So I'm just going to buzz through these. Passwords are bad, right? Everyone can agree. You know, breaches all over the place, happening all the time, costing us all kinds of ridiculous amounts of money. Crime rates are going up, lots and lots of examples about why all this is bad and what we need to fix. So, moving on from there. So what we need is some kind of major change, right? The problem is that we've had a weak system in the past that's primarily been based on knowledge-based credentials. You gotta keep it in your head. Even things like SMS OTP, that's still a knowledge thing, right? It's something you know. You know it for 2 seconds, but you still know it. So we use a knowledge-based factor on top of a knowledge-based factor. There's all kinds of threats there and risks. You got the man-in-the-middle attacks, phishing. With stored secrets, you've got server breach issues, which we face on an ongoing basis. So the idea is to move a shift towards what we call possession-based credentialing. So it's something you have in your possession becomes the key part of how you do the authentication. So it can be on a device, it can be on your phone, it can be in your laptop, it can be a physical external key. So you always have that thing with you. And in addition to that, you can add some kind of, say, local biometric or a PIN. So you've got kind of an integrated two-factor, often all within one compact unit. And so this is a profound shift from the knowledge base, because I'll talk about it a little bit later. This addresses most of the problems with stored passwords on servers, which can't, with the FIDO approach can't be breached, as well as protecting against man-in-the-middle and phishing attacks. And the key is that we're shifting not just to a cryptographically secure thing, but a user-initiated one. That's the other part of it, is that the whole FIDO process depends on a user interaction. There's a gesture and action the user has to take in order for the authentication to take place, which makes it much harder for machine takeovers to be able to pretend to be the user. I never remember how the build slides go, so I have to keep turning around. I see the whole thing here. So FIDO's goal from the very beginning has been solving the problem of, everybody knows good security has bad usability, right? And if it's really usable, it's probably not secure. So we've been trying to find a sweet spot where we get stronger authentication and it's easier to use. And that's been our driving goal from the time that FIDO was started, almost 10 years ago now. We're actually just coming up to our 10th anniversary. And so open standards for simpler, stronger authentication has been our single motivation since then. It's been our primary focus, our main focus, and of course based on public key cryptography and also the notion of a user gesture and possession based of the device or the key. So this set of logos, these are just the board members. And the reason we like to show this is so that you can see how strong the support is across the industry. So we have all the major platform vendors. We've got silicon vendors. We have payment providers. We have credit card companies. We've got cloud providers. We have a very extensive collection of tech companies who are fully invested in developing and deploying the FIDO standards. And the beauty is this is just our board of directors. So we currently have 43, 44 board members. It changes every now and then. So that gives you some idea of where we're starting from, but we actually just hit an all-time high of over 300 members in the organization. And that includes sponsor members, associate members, liaison members, as well as government members. And in fact, one of the benefits of this trip is that we may have found new opportunities for refreshing some existing liaison partnerships and also looking at possibilities of developing some government memberships and government connections. And of course, we've got 3 new India working group members, I think. Yeah, eSmart was one.
Guys and
And
Voice.
what's that?
Guys and Voice.
Guide and Voice, and who was the third one? Was that? Right, thank you. Apologize, I should have had them all written down. So 3 brand new members right there, just in the last month or so. And so, that provides a lot of support. It gives us a very diverse set of members, all contributing to the development, deployment, and education around the use of FIDO. So I'm going to go through how it works. It's all at a very basic level. This is not a technical description, but it's just kind of a reminder to people of how this flow works and where the real value in FIDO comes in. So traditionally, you've got a user, you have a service that they're using, and they just enter the username password. It goes over the wire. Oops, someone can steal it. The secret gets stored on a server. Oops, the password can be breached, or the server can be breached and it can be stolen. So the innovation with FIDO is this notion of an authenticator, which is, we generally call it a device. It could be a key, it could be your phone, it could be your laptop, but there's this thing now that sits in between the user and the service provider. And the idea is that the authentication action no longer takes place between the human and the server, but it takes place between the authenticator and the service with the support, endorsement, approval of the user. So the process involves the creation of a public-private key pair for every relying party that you want to connect with. So I've got Bob, he wants to set up an account with his bank, and so with his bank, the authenticator creates a private and public key pair for that relationship. The authenticator holds on to the private key, the public key is provided to the bank in this case. Except that doesn't happen until the user takes an action. And what the reason for this is that if the authenticator is just in the machine and it could be controlled in an automated fashion, your machine gets compromised, the software can go in, pretend to be you, start generating keys, and that's bad. So it always requires some kind of user verification. Now, in some cases, it's just a gesture. So if you've got an external key, many of them just have a touch point for that, but also many of them have fingerprint readers built into them. Some have other forms of biometrics, or if it's built into your laptop or your phone, of course, they all mostly have various forms of biometrics today. So some kind of gesture, and it says user verification. It's not always user verification. This really just means user confirmation, let's say. But it may be a verification method as well. The point being, though, that the key generation and the sharing of key doesn't happen until the user has provided the necessary gesture. And at that point, the keys are generated, public key is shared with the service, say the bank. So when it comes time to authenticate, the user goes to the website. The bank sends a challenge back to the authenticator. And in the challenge, it says, here's who I am this bank. It says, here's the identity of the person we think is trying to authenticate. The authenticator uses that information, verifies that it's from the right domain, and that's where some of the anti-phishing stuff comes in, is it makes sure that the domain that created the key is the same domain that's asking for the key. So you have situations like, I've created a key with, say, Google, and then some phishing site sneaks in and it's G00 instead of 00 instead of 00. Well, the way the FIDO protocol works is that would come across as the domain ID, the relying party ID. It won't match, so the authentication will fail. So that's how it one of the ways in which it blocks the phishing attacks. So if it confirms that it's a legitimate ID from the right relying party, it signs the challenge with the private key that was created initially, sends it back, the comparison is done with the public key, and assuming all the keys are right, the authentication happens. The beauty of this, as I pointed out, through the challenge mechanism, you can't, this protects against replay attacks by using nonces. It also protects against the phishing attacks I described, but because it's storing a public key and not a secret, it's also protecting against breach attacks. So if somebody goes and gets the whole database of public keys, they're useless. And an additional point, which isn't obvious in this flow, is if Bob now wants to go to eBay and he creates a new pair for eBay. So for every site you go to, a new key is created. It'll be a new private key with a new public key. If the bank and eBay wanted to do bad things together, they couldn't look at those public keys and know that they both belong to Bob. So the user's privacy is actually protected across websites as well. Very important these days. Both very important always. one of the most powerful things about FIDO today is that the core support is built into pretty much every device out there now. You buy a device today, the support for FIDO is already built in. It's in all the major OS platforms, and it's in all the major browsers. So if a relying party wants to deploy a FIDO solution, they want to add FIDO authentication, the question of, will it work on my customers' devices? It's pretty much taken care of. Yes, older iPhones may not have quite support. Actually, I think Android support goes pretty far back. Farther back, I think, than iPhone. Don't quote me. But there is, in practical terms, we're looking at probably 4 or maybe 5 years worth of devices are enabled because of updates to OSs. So it's pretty reliable. You can reliably assume that the devices out there that your customers are using are going to be supported by the platforms that they're using. So that's on the previous one was on the platform support. This is a growing list of global solutions that are already using FIDO as a key part. It's a growing list. It'll just keep getting bigger and bigger, but we try and highlight, we've got payment companies, we've got telcos, we've got big service providers, Twitter, which, by the way, if they'd been using it before, wouldn't have gotten hacked. I'll point that out. If you remember, Twitter got hacked a few years ago. If they'd been using two-factor authentication, they wouldn't have gotten hacked. You've got Samsung and Microsoft and eBay. They're all using it. PayPal has now shown is now using passkeys as well. There's a very large electronics company in North America called Best Buy. They're now using FIDO keys as well. So we've got some very large consumer or government agencies are using it. So it's a very extensive list of different types of relying parties are now deploying this. And these are all, I think these are all customer facing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these are all consumer facing ones. Of course, the list of enterprise-based ones is bigger and in fact harder to know because they don't advertise it, right? The fact that someone is using it inside their company is not as obvious. So, speaking of breaches, we couldn't have asked for a better use case to have happened. It's unfortunate for the users, but they got hit by Twilio, or affected by Twilio's breach. But within a few weeks, I think it was, these two sites, very big sites, got hacked, or at least attacked. Twilio didn't do so well. They were using SMS OTP, and the hackers were able to get in. Cloudflare, at about the same time, I think it was a couple of weeks later, they ran into the same thing, and I'm pretty sure it was the same attackers. And guess what? They were using FIDO keys, and they didn't get hacked. I mean, the beauty of it is it's really simple. Didn't use it, did use it, and it's exactly why Cloudflare was protected, because they'd done some kind of phishing attack that was able to intercept the OTP, the SMS OTP. So of course, if you put up a phishing site and someone enters their password, you steal the password and you go off, and they send the OTP to your phone. Okay, great, I got my OTP. Nobody's hacked the phone, but I typed the OTP in. Well, guess what? I just handed the OTP to the phishing site as well. So I've just given them both pieces of information, and that's essentially the nature of this attack. Because they're using FIDO as their second factor, they may have phished for the password, but it just stopped as soon as they had to do second factor. So the next step for FIDO is trying to reach mass adoption. Usability is one of the issues that's been a bit of a challenge in a variety of factors. Security keys for consumers can be a bit of a cumbersome thing. Account recovery has been a bit of a challenge. Switching devices and so on. These have made things a little more difficult in some cases. Different implementation features, how the user experience is on a website tends to vary from site to site. And so one of the things that we've done, lost control. one of the things we've done is produced a series of user guidelines. In 2021, we provided a set of guidelines for how to improve usability when using the platform authenticator. So that's using the authenticator that's built into a laptop or a phone. Laptop or phone. And the idea is, what are the flows that you should follow? What is the order in which you should ask them to do things? When should you ask them to do things? In some cases, what kind of language to use when asking them to do things. And this was based on extensive customer research. They interviewed people, they gave them demo screens that they had put together. And the important thing to keep in mind is this is not brand specific, right? Getting in the way of a company's brand is a very bad idea, right? We don't want to tell anybody how to brand their stuff for their customer, but there are some well understood behavioral things that we can learn and understand and apply in a general way. And the real benefit to the customer comes when those lessons are learned by multiple relying parties. So what it means is you come to a website now, you see username, password, you know exactly what to do, right? Because you've done it a million times. There's no question anymore. But when now suddenly you've got like a thing like a FIDO happening, well, if they present it differently, if the layouts are odd every time you do it, you don't start, the users don't start learning, oh, I know what this is, I know how to do that. And that creates a user, what they call user friction. It's somewhat of a barrier to getting things done. So one of the value propositions that for us in providing this is not only to make it easier for the relying parties to provide their users with a better experience, but it also raises the quality of the implementation so that we can start getting more consistent behavior and experience across multiple relying party sites. And then this year we produced another set, this time focused on using security keys. Because the whole notion of having to put a key in and what the behaviors are associated with that are very different from when the authenticator is actually built into the device. Excuse me. And again, based on the same kind of user research, we actually developed, with the help of some folks from IBM, a pseudo banking website. So we actually had, from a consumer sort of visual standpoint, a real site. They had to create an account, they had to go through the steps of creating the keys. So we had something they could actually work with. It wasn't just asking them questions. They could actually, we could watch them use the site and see how long it took them to figure things out, see what worked, what didn't work, and so on. And this is work that we're continuing to do. We've actually, should we go back just for a second? Don't think I talked about it. No, just as an added note here, we actually have now, we formed it last year, a user experience committee. And this came as a result of doing this work. We realized that this was worth its own team to do this development work. And they're actually taking this kind of stuff even a step further. They're creating the, what do you call them? Storyboards, if you will, that show how do you move from one to another. And again, talking about terminology, use of logos and icons and whatnot, to help educate so that we can try and get more consistent experiences. All right, so what's new? Passkeys. Who here has heard of passkeys? Not bad. Okay, so I mentioned some of the challenges with using FIDO today. Account recovery, losing your device, having to carry keys around. These are some of the usability issues for consumers. When I say consumer, I mean, the billions of people that are using it out there. Your moms, your sisters, the non-technical people, your grandpa, whoever, who aren't familiar with technology. They just want it to be quick and easy and they want it to work. And the idea is that a passkey, it's just a word, it's just a noun, it's not anything really different. In fact, it's still just a FIDO key. What's really different is, what's changed is the user experience is now a little different because what comes with passkey is the ability for the keys now to be synchronized across devices. And there's two benefits you get from that. The first is today, if I have an iPhone and an iPad, and I want to, I'm Bob, I want to register with my bank, like I described earlier. Well, on my iPhone, I go to the bank and I had to create a key with the bank on my iPhone. So I could now log in with FIDO on my iPhone. On my iPad, well, guess what? I had to go through that same process again and create a key on the iPad to log into the bank. So I had to do it, twice, and if I had more devices, I'd have to do it again and again. With passkeys now, those things can synchronize between those devices. So if I create the passkey, the FIDO key on my iPhone, the next time I try to log into my bank on my iPad, it'll say, hey, I've got a passkey for the bank. Do you want to just use that? And it automatically logs you in. The system that allows for that synchronizing also acts as a backup. So if I have just my iPhone, pardon me, and I lose it, or I want to trade it in, the new device, how do I get all those keys on the new device? Well, Apple has a very extensive onboarding mechanism to ensure trust, and it will then recover those keys. It actually uses, I should mention, specifically in the Apple case, it uses the iCloud keychain. For those of you who may be aware of that, that's how they already do a lot of their credential management. So it's basically the iCloud keychain recovery mechanism is used to then restore all those credentials to a new device. And it's also the channel that it uses to do the synchronizing between the devices. So that means now that not only does it share across my devices, I don't have to create multiple ones, I know I can reliably get those keys back if I happen to lose the only device that I have. Oh my. You're gonna have to excuse me, let me just do this. This would have been a very bad mistake. Here we go. Let's see if this goes down. Come on. Oops. There we go. All right. I just noticed this, I mistyped this as, it had said it not, or is not supported on them, which is absolutely wrong. In fact, I changed it because what had been there just earlier today was it was saying it was going to be coming soon, and I wanted to say it's now supported, and it said not, so that would have been a mistake. It is now built in to macOS, iOS, and Android, actually should say Chrome as well. Now, I do have to say that at this point, with this initial release, synchronizing only works between macOS and iOS and between Android devices. It doesn't yet provide synchronization, say, between a macOS and an Android device. That'll be coming. It is something that the platform vendors are working on. But as you can imagine, moving keys from here to here is one issue. Moving keys from one provider and operating system to another provider and a different operating system introduces a whole bunch of other security challenges. So it's not an easy problem to solve, but I can tell you with confidence that all of the providers, including Windows, Windows isn't here just because they haven't announced when they're going to have that yet. They're supposed to have their passkey support later this year. But at some point that will be available. The other thing that's added, and I don't have a slide for this though, is the ability to do cross-platform authentication. So let's say I've logged in to the bank, created a passkey on my iPhone. I now want to log into the bank on my Windows machine. What is enabled is that when I go to the bank, I can tell it I've got a passkey. It'll bring up a QR code. And the QR code is not a credential thing. It's a connection thing. It's a way for the site to be able to find my phone, rather, the phone reads it, it enables the phone to be able to make a connection. So it's not actually passing any credentials. It allows the phone to connect and to establish a connection using Bluetooth with this device. Now it doesn't use Bluetooth to exchange any credentials. It uses Bluetooth to maintain or to provide a proximity factor, right? That's one of the value propositions. We talk about possession, right? You're there when you own it. It's in your hand, and it protects against long distance types attacks. So we use Bluetooth as a way to say, yeah, that phone is within local proximity. And then what happens is, because the credential's on your phone, the phone will be prompted for you to enter your PIN, your fingerprint, or touch something. To do the authentication, it goes through the back channel, it authenticates, and you're in. And at that point, the website should probably say, hey, do you want to create a credential on your Windows machine now? But you don't have to. The nice thing is that because it doesn't do it automatically, I could use my credential to log into somebody else's, to my bank on somebody else's machine, and no credentials get left behind. So there's no risk that my friend, if he decides he doesn't like me anymore, can log into my bank and try and mess up my account. So it's a very trustworthy way of allowing you to log into other devices. One of the great use cases is actually things like kiosks, right? That if you need to do authentication with a kiosk, which often has limited input capabilities as well, again, you've got this QR code mechanism to do the connection, no risk of leaving your credentials behind. So with all of that, this addresses a number of the huge, well, yes, there were some huge usability challenges because of the backup and recovery and because of the synchronization things. These were definite barriers to adoption in some scenarios. And so the use of password recovery is going, or sorry, the use of passkey is going a long way towards addressing that. A couple of great examples of organizations that are already adopting this. Yahoo Japan has been password free now, actually even before passkey, for, I think it was sometime last year they started doing it. One of the big factors, reduced inquiries, right? One of the huge costs to businesses is account recovery and questions about account. You can reduce that by 25%, that's pretty substantial. And the sign-up time is increased. So again, anything to reduce friction in a transaction is always seen as a good change. And then at Authenticate this year, we had two significant announcements. One was PayPal announced that they were going to be integrating the use of passkeys with their PayPal app, and similarly Docomo and their adoption of passkey for passwordless authentication on their networks. So some other things that we've made progress on in 2022 that are worth highlighting. We launched the FIDO Certified Professional Program. This is like other security professional certifications that are out there, focused mostly, of course, on authentication. So it says FIDO Certified Professional, but to be that, you need to be an identity professional. You need to be a security professional. You need to understand authentication. And so it's kind of a rolled up, bundle of that. It's not just how does FIDO work. It's all about how to use it in context and what are the business requirements and the business benefits. And that's already launched. And the DocAuth certification is a whole other separate piece that sort of supports the authentication side. If you imagine there's a lot of systems out there now that do so-called selfie matching. You take a picture of a photo ID of some sort, driver's license, passport, sort of national ID card. You take a selfie of yourself. They get sent to the server. First thing they have to do is say, is this an authenticate document? Is it actually the driver's license? Is it actually a passport? Is it a valid one from that company or organization? And then the second step is comparing the face to the face on the card. So the first step to that is we've created certification guidelines not for how to do that work, right? How that authentication actually happens, how you analyze the document and evaluate it. That's a company's secret sauce, right? That's what they do. That's their proprietary technology. So we're not talking about that. What we're doing is we're saying, how do you evaluate if it's successful or not? Because the challenge that a lot of relying parties, the customers of these devices or these services, found is, how do I compare them? I've got 3 vendors all saying they've got great tools that can do this. Well, are they any good? Right? There was no formal metrics out there to help somebody decide if a system is good or not. And so that's the purpose of our certification program, which is also launched, is to evaluate the success of the document authentication, whether it's false acceptance, whether it's false reject, and so on. That's the core of this. So again, it's not about how to do the processing, the analysis. It's an evaluation of the analysis. The challenging part of this, of course, is the number of different types of documents that are out there. And an interesting challenge, depending on which country you're in order to do proper testing, you need to have fraudulent documents in order to do the tests. Well, it turns out having fraudulent documents is illegal in a lot of places. Having possession of fraudulent documents is literally against the law, and there are very serious consequences. And the US is actually one of them. And it's been an interesting challenge finding solutions to that. But we have test labs who are already on board, and we have some companies who are supposed to be starting tests soon. So I'm not going to ask how they solved the problem, but apparently they did. Plug my ears. So that's those are a couple of big things that we've been able to move forward this year as well. And I call this out because this goes to how a big part of FIDO is not just writing the specifications, but also helping build the ecosystem, which we do partly through our certification programs. Right? We have certification in place for authenticators today. We have certification in place for biometric components today. And all of this is intended to help build a robust, trusted ecosystem. Right? That the authentication portion is just one piece. Right? There are a lot of other components around there that need to be tested and evaluated as well in order to have a successful ecosystem. And so by building up the certification program, it provides full support for the rest of the authentication and identity proofing ecosystem. So my call to you as a group is to start building the business cases, right? Because ultimately it's what it comes down to. What's it going to cost me, and how is it going to benefit my business? Or what kind of losses is it going to help protect against, right? You got to figure out what is the business benefit for you or for your customer, and understand how the technology fits in. Scope out pilots, develop your metrics. Building a POC, really important. It's like when we're developing the specifications themselves. If somebody's not writing an implementation while you're writing the specification, it's a waste of time. Right? You can't say we're done the specification unless somebody's actually built against it. So you can't really know whether or not to move to the next step, whether or not you're even in the right direction to achieve the initial goals until you actually try and do it, because you just don't know what you're going to run up against. So the POC is often a critical part in this whole flow. And then you iterate, you improve on it, and finding peers through the industry networks. Guess what? That's what this room is all about, right? That's what FIDO India working group is about. It's why we have our member plenaries every year, where the members come together in one place. We've got our next one coming up in Thailand. This engagement with other industry partners is really, really important to help you understand that first, you're not alone. There are a lot of people trying to solve the same kinds of problems, sometimes in different industries, right? Sometimes it's really surprising to find out that someone working on shipping problems might be the same as somebody who's building semiconductors. It's because, the business isn't the problem, it's how do their enterprise users need to access the system that's the common part. And so by being able to work with industry partners, you can learn a lot more about that, and then roll it out. We've got certified products. We've got a lot of developer resources on our website. There's a lot of open source out there that you can get to use to get started. Some of it even provided by vendors, right? They often will provide, it's like in the Linux environment, it's like, here's the open source stuff, but guess what? There's still a business to help support that, right? That it's often not enough just to take the open source code. You often need more behind that. So there's a lot of code and support information that's out there. And as it says here, there's over 900 currently certified FIDO products. This is both authenticators as well as FIDO servers. And then the last one, we didn't make this up. The rise of Pandava. I forget the source of this, but it was
Indonesia.
What's that?
Indonesia.
It was Malaysia?
Indonesia.
Indonesia. Yeah, they asked a bunch of bodies with Indonesia to come up with a great story about two-factor authentication, and this was one of them about, says all all Pandava troops must start protecting their devices and accounts with two-factor authentication. So if the gods say so, then clearly it's important. Anyway, it was a novel way of telling the story about the importance of two-factor authentication. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I didn't speak too quickly. I know I can get going kind of fast sometimes, but otherwise, thank you. Are there any questions? No? Okay. Seriously, anyone have questions about any of what I talked about, or if you think I missed something that you're curious about?
David,
Yes?
what's the role of passkeys as far as enterprises are concerned?
Time to go. So the question was about passkeys and enterprise. So there's two parts to that. Well, there's more than two, but you can look at it from two perspectives. So the reason that people express concern about passkey with respect to the enterprise is the fact that typically in enterprise environments today, they know my device, right? They do things and they know that this is David Turner's phone, and if I try and access a resource, not only do I have to provide my own credentials, but there's device authentication taking place at the same time. So it's a highly trusted process. And so what you actually get with FIDO without passkey is an implied device authentication. Because if I can only create a public-private key on this device and the private key doesn't go anywhere, then that tells me reliably when I use that public key for authentication that this is the same device. So people have kind of hijacked FIDO, which is about user authentication. They've kind of hijacked it without realizing it to say, oh, that's kind of a device authentication tool as well. What happens with passkey is if those keys can move from this device to another device, they can still reliably know that it's me. That part didn't go away. What they've lost, though, is the trust in the device. They no longer know, is that a device I can trust? So this device they know I trust. And you've seen this with bank accounts. It seems to be mostly with banks, right? When you sign in, it says, trust this device for 30 days or something like that. And what they do is they put a little cookie or some such on your device so that they don't keep bothering you every time. They say, yes, I recognize the device and I'll trust it to do certain things. What happens in this case is you use the passkey on a new device and it has no way of knowing, based just on the passkey, if it's the same device as before. What that means is that the enterprise now has to add something on the device to make sure it's a trusted device. And that may mean that they go to the device, they say that stuff's not there, okay, we'll do some kind of step-up authentication this time. We'll put something on now that lets us trust the device. And frankly, the fact that it was a cookie is remarkably that was a trusted security feature. It wasn't a certificate, it was just some cookie with information saying, yeah, we've seen this machine before. But if you put something on that new machine, then it becomes trusted and it's okay. However, for some organizations that may not be quite sufficient. It increases costs to some extent. And then there's also the concern about where are those keys when they go between devices. So in the case of, well, regardless of who's doing it, Apple, Microsoft, Google, it's their infrastructure. So currently Apple's the only one that actually lets you do this between devices, because, between say Mac OS and iOS and iPad. If I create it, what that means is my keys get stored on an Apple server through their iCloud keychain, thank you. And so they go, and then I go to another device, and that's where they get pulled down. The question is, there's two questions. Do I trust that Apple will protect those private keys sufficiently? Personally, I would say probably yes. They've published information about how they, use triple encryption in transit and at rest and such, which suggests that it is, when it's stored on the server, it's safe. But there's another concern which is called credential, not autonomy, authority. I've forgotten the word. The enterprise loses control of the credential. So let's say I want to recover that credential. it's not the enterprise that does the credential recovery. It's Apple. So that's a concern, because it means now that the sovereignty, right? They lose sovereignty over the credential. So, I'm working for, I'm a bank employee. I've created a FIDO credential on my iPhone. If I need to recover it, I go to Apple. I don't go to my bank, the bank that I work for. And that creates concerns as well, trust, sovereignty, ownership, right? They don't control it. And that creates a lot of concerns. Now, today, really there is not much you can do about it. In the future, and I didn't touch on this, not only are we looking at ways of moving between different providers, but also there will be opportunity for what we call third-party passkey providers, meaning not the platforms. And so what you can imagine are the existing password providers that are out there today. In fact, they're already doing this. Passkey, Dashlane, 1Password, not Passkey, LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane. They plan on being a provider. So you could also imagine that an enterprise might build their own, or they may say, we're using Dashlane already to protect credentials, therefore we will use Dashlane as the passkey provider. So there are other solutions that are coming along so that the enterprise can have a little more control and a little more say about who's actually managing, protecting, backing up, restoring the credentials. Is that good answer?
Well, this is a concern which keeps coming.
Yes.
Enterprises do ask about.
Yeah. The second part, which I skipped over, well, I didn't skip over, I'm giving it to you now. The second part is that for a large number of users, even in the enterprise scenario, passkeys are probably sufficient. It's not necessarily the case that every person within an enterprise needs the highest level of security for authentication. That you will have a tiered system within your organization, not always, but in some very large organizations, not everyone has the same risk profile, and therefore you don't need the same level of security protection for the accounts. And so even within an enterprise, there's still opportunity to get value from passkey. That's entirely an enterprise decision. I'm not telling anyone how to run their businesses, but I'm just pointing out that for many users, it will still be a viable thing. For the FIDO standpoint, though, where we see the real value is it gets rid of passwords, right? And that's where even in the enterprise scenario, it's a value, because if you could suddenly stop 80% of your enterprise users from using passwords, that sounds awfully good, right? That's a huge benefit. So yeah, there may be some trade-offs that you're not comfortable with, but if you can suddenly get rid of passwords for 90+% of your logins, that's a pretty positive thing. In the consumer space, that's where the real value comes in. If you talk to Apple, passkey is about getting rid of password. It's a password replacement. That's what it does, and it does it really, really well. And for the majority of end users out there, that's puts them way beyond where they are today with passwords.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other? Yes.
What role do you see of passkey for IoT devices?
So the question is, what about passkey as a role in IoT devices? So it's a challenge, but not because of passkey, but because of FIDO, how FIDO works. So if you remember my demonstration, a key part of that was user interaction. So it was designed from the start to assume that a human was going to take an action. So it doesn't really fit that model. What we've done, though, is FIDO has developed specification for device onboarding. It's called FIDO Device Onboard, and it's a spec for doing automated device onboarding in a secure fashion. And the short description of it is that it works in a way that provides for, when you want to onboard it with whatever cloud service or management service you're using, it allows for mutual authentication. So the device knows that who it's authenticating to is the right trusted person, and that the service that's wanting to use it know that it's a trusted device. One of the real benefits, so part of that is it can be done in an automated way. You turn the device on, connects it to the network, and it goes and does the rest, which can save huge amounts of time because you don't have to have a human try and interact with it every single device. So imagine every one of these was a smart bulb. Imagine if a user, right, a person, other than plugging it in, had to take one extra step that took an extra 10 seconds. Well, 10 seconds for every one of these lights. Any idea how many lights are in your building? It becomes undoable. And so this is an automated thing that once it's plugged in, the first thing it knows what to do is to go out and try and connect. The other benefit is that it's designed in a way so that it can be what we call late binding. In most systems today, when they burn the silicon and build the device, you have to know in advance who the management software is going to be that you're connecting to, because it then has to know how to talk to it. And so at manufacturing, you have to know how many devices are going to be sold to, this management tool or that management tool, and it becomes a supply chain nightmare. And what if I built too many of these and not enough of those? Well, if you built it so it just uses FIDO, then it's not until the last moment when it's done its initial authentication that it then onboards to the platform that's going to be using it. And the last stage of the onboarding protocol is to launch the custom setup. So there's it's basically a handoff to say, now you have a trusted communication channel, set me up, push down whatever extra software you need, do all your configuration and so on. So it's not the same, but we've worked on that solution too.
Any update on Mozilla? When Mozilla is
So the question is about updates on Mozilla. It's sad, and I mean that legitimately. It's disappointing. They had one fellow who was working on it, and he was doing a great job. He moved on. Mozilla's been struggling with resources in the last little while, and they have a guy who's in charge of the FIDO-related stuff, but it's only one small piece of what he does. And he's on our calls. Like he calls into the WebAuthn working groups at W3C, and the rest of the group is great about saying, hey, apologize, I've forgotten his name. Is this change okay with you? Like, is Mozilla okay with it? He says, yes. You're not going to see it for a while, but conceptually, yeah, that we can build that. So they're included in the conversation. They're just resource constrained, which would make me a whole lot happier because it provides kind of a free choice. Although I will point out that the Samsung browser that's on all the phones supports FIDO. I think they added support for it last year, so you actually have a choice right there on your Samsung devices. But it would be nice to have a neutral party that's supporting it. So I would love to see Firefox support it. Any other questions? Yes.
Passkey, like as you said, it can sync the private keys between the multiple devices of one, like of one particular person, right? Yeah. But according to the NIST, NIST SP 860B, it says that the software authenticators should discourage and shall not facilitate the cloning of key to multiple devices. So how is it safe?
So the question is related to a US NIST special publication. It's the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US. They're more about measurements and certification type standards as opposed to FIDO standards. They wouldn't tell you how to do something, sort of like our certification. They wouldn't tell you how to do it, like how to actually implement it, but they will say you must meet these standards in order to do it. Like it has to have this kind of encryption, or the keys aren't allowed to leave the device, those sorts of things. Now, it's called 863. The most recent published version is 863-3, third version. Part B that he referenced It has multiple parts. Part B is the authentication assurance levels. That's what it talks about. And there's three. There's AAL1, AAL2, AAL3. So, and the question is, well, how does passkey relate to currently what's written in there? I have to hedge a bit here. They're currently working on -4. They announced a draft just a week or two ago, and it's open for public comment. And I have not been directly involved in those discussions, but we've met with NIST, we've talked to NIST. NIST understands what it's about, and they're actually trying to understand how to word things in a way that doesn't just invalidate it. So one of the things that they're going to be changing, for example, is in AAL2 today, they just talk about second factors, period, which meant that using SMS OTP was on par with using FIDO. Well, that's not true, right? That they're not equal. One is very susceptible to phishing and one is not. So one of the changes based on work we did with them was to get them to make the distinction that there are, phishable and unphishable approaches to doing two-factor or multi-factor authentication. So that's a change. As far as the specifics relating to passkey, I know it's being discussed. I know under -3 it would be a problem. I'm pretty sure they're trying to find a way in 4 not to weaken or undermine their own requirements, but rather to appropriately accommodate it, right? To recognize that yes, it's a different thing, but I'm now beginning to just guess at what they're likely to do, but I understand the concern, it's a legitimate one, I'm not sure where it's gonna end up. Does that help? No one else? All right. We good?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm Manu Gupta. I'm the founder and CEO of Noida Exam, and we are a digital proctoring startup. We are currently very young, still at the bootstrap stage, and yeah. So we are a calm, flexible, and credible online proctoring solution. And we use AI-fueled computer vision to flag off use of unfair means in online exam. So in the COVID season, the proctoring picked up a lot, and there was a huge need for digital proctoring. And there was need of various levels of flexibility and authentication depending on different type of exams. Like a class test, you need a different level of authentication compared to say a GRE or a GMAT test. So keeping all these things in mind, we analyzed and talked to a lot of teachers, examiners, and came up with a solution called Monitor Exam. So when we started conducting exams using Monitor Exam, so what we realized was that when we conducted Olympiads, our OpenCV technology was needing high compute requirements for identifying the student, analysis, and authentication. And also, when we tried to go to the US market has huge privacy concerns for biometric storage, and also for identifying for authorization, basically for face recognition. There are a lot of court cases in US which say that the face recognition for some races or for some people was not happening correctly. So that is why we avoided doing face recognition via our OpenCV technology. So the challenge was that can FIDO help? So before coming to how FIDO is helping, I would like to cover the scope of the market. So US has 76.4 million school students, which are, a lot of them are currently using Chromebooks, and 19.7 million college students. So every college in US has a testing center. And these testing centers are physical and also slowly moving online. And so this kind of gives, basically various reports say that there is a 10 plus billion market by 2026 in US itself. So all colleges give around 10 exams a year, and students in US, in order to save cost and to take care of what student already knows, students also have a credit by exam policy where they can save a lot of money by giving exams. So that creates another market where the students are just giving tests and are not going through the course material. Besides that, another area which we will be touching on is the certification exams, which are now mostly conducted remotely and are proctored only. So certification exams means AWS certifications and a lot of other certifications. So before taking this how FIDO will help, let me show you a current process. So what we do is that the user enters our system, and before FIDO, we were basically verifying the user in a waiting room, and then we were taking him to the exam room where he was conducting his exam, and parallelly our technology was taking photographs and sending it to an analytics engine, and it was raising alarms if there was a problem. So this was the scenario without FIDO. So we are using FaceAuth for periodic biometric authentication. So what happens is that when the exam is going on, our FaceAuth can continuously verify whether the user has changed or not. Because sometimes what happens is that in exams, one student comes and verifies in the waiting room and enters the exam, and then somebody else might come in. So to avoid that, we would be doing periodic FaceAuth using FIDO. So with this, since a lot of processing is happening at the device itself, so it will be saving us with a lot of compute capacity, because OpenCV in itself is also very computation intensive, and our AWS cost increases a lot with that. And verification with FIDO, since the FIDO is storing the credentials locally, so it ensures greater privacy for the user, and we are saved from the issue of storing their biometric data. Continuous random authentication adds another layer of security in the proctoring process, and if someone tries to impersonate in between, so the auth will fail and the examiner who is observing could come to know. So I think this I have already covered regarding the privacy regulations, and the first 2 points I already covered in the last slide. And so because of these issues, the best Ivy League colleges like Yale and Harvard, they do not use the existing proctoring solutions which are the competitors, and they have shifted to using just Zoom, because they consider Zoom to be less intrusive. So this made us understand that they are looking for a calm solution. They need a calm and better solution, like David also mentioned, something which is safe and easy to use. So who are the expected customers? So testing centers of the colleges which conduct before remote and offline exams are the expected customers that we are targeting. So I think this all I have covered. So coming to our implementation. So we use the DO Labs webauthing.io Go server in the backend, hosted on the Ubuntu instance. So this is freely available as open source. The frontend on Windows invokes the Window Hello protocol, which has PIN authentication, fingerprint, trust key hardware, and face authentication. So these were the 4 ones which we experimented with, and each one has a different benefit for us. So PIN authentication locks the system with the device. So since we are a flexible platform, if there is a customer who needs that, who has a complaint that my users should stick to only one device while giving the test, and there should not be a case where they kind of log in from somewhere else, then PIN authentication is what we would offer them. And similarly, fingerprint authentication is where biometric authentication is very important. And face authentication is, as I explained earlier, it will help us in saving the bandwidth and also help us in preventing the storage of biometric data ourselves. So this is the these are the various snapshots of our implementation, and I will also give you a live of the same. So this is, I think this slide is already covered by David, so I will not take it further. I think he has explained it very nicely. What he mentioned as a relying party there would be the monitor exam app. So RP would be monitor exam application, and monitor exam itself would be running a WebAuthn server. So that is the difference. And in case there is somebody who is impersonating in the case of an exam, so the biometric match will fail, and there itself the FIDO authentication will fail for that person. So let me come to the demo. Yes, suppose there is a new user who wants to join. So for FIDO authentication, he will register his device here. And here he can enter the PIN for a device specific authentication. So David, regarding the answer in the last demo, that how the creation key in the remote exam will happen. So this is the solution which we have implemented now. That the photo would be taken, and at the back end the photo would be verified by the invigilator that this is the same person who was creating the authentication key. So at the instant of authentication key creation, the photo would be registered. So that is how we ensure the safety during the key creation. And then we check the environment of the student, and here it agrees to the terms and conditions. We also take a stamp of the IP and the device being used and submit. So this is how the registration happens. And next time when the user has to log in, this time we will get a use security key option. And there he can continue his exam. So currently, let me show what happens during the exam. So here the use of FIDO is for the 2FA, and later on when he starts the exam, this is the verification room where he enters. Here he enters the exam, and here again we are doing the continuous authentication during the exam. So FIDO with monitor exam is taking care of the continuous authentication part. So this is about the demo. Any questions here? So student logs in with password. FIDO is when FIDO auth is done. Student takes the exam, and FIDO auth is done every 10 minutes. So
we
this
have a
will.
question on the floor.
Have you actually tried using any of the ID verification services or using facial recognition from your identity photos or other photos to actually verify the identity of the student rather than
We prefer to use a manual identity verification because if you check the legal lawsuits in US, a couple of our competitors, I think like the Proctorio they have had lawsuits on the face recognition, identity face recognition part. So that is why we have only implemented face detection, and the recognition we are doing manually. So we would be like after the exam, if without FIDO, we were after every 30-second snapshot, we are building that into a video. So a 30-minute exam will make like a 60 seconds video, and then the user can manually see if there is any change or anything. But with FIDO, we get a live authentication failure on the invigilator dashboard, and without much resources, because we are using the client resources. These days, clients are very, very powerful and they have a lot of resources which are not being used by the server applications. And in an exam, anyhow, the user is, the student is totally focusing on the exam and not doing anything else. So any background applications or other applications, we are assuming that they are not competing for the resources.
I have a question. So like in case if there is a disconnection of network, right? I assume that somebody is appearing from home or some other place, right? So as you are capturing IP address, there are chances that when disconnection happens, the device may get a new IP address.
This IP address which we are capturing is not the local IP address which is assigned by the DHCP. This is the fixed IP address. This is the ISP IP address which remains the same.
You mean gateway?
Yeah, gateway. The ISP provides an IP address. So it remains, we have tested that it remains similar most of the time. Then this is not the only decision point. We are also capturing the location. So there are several factors. So we will not, we are not, since it is a calm platform, we are not blocking the student. We would be just showing an aberration, and then there would be the proctor can take the decision later whether to disqualify the student from the exam or not. So some disqualification can happen live and some can be done later based on the data that we have presented. So IP we are just using as an indicator that there is a red flag, maybe you need to look, or an orange flag you need to look at. But it is all the culmination of the data and the patterns that the decision is taken.
Okay, so you're only working for authentication, or you're also monitoring or like noise level in surrounding?
The sound we are not using at the moment. Sound is sound we are not monitoring at the moment. Photo is enough. We talked to a lot of Olympiad providers in India. For them, photo, they said that sound is not needed. So we can see from the lip movement that the person is talking, or from the video which comes later that there has been some verbal communication. And we have detected it in the previous Olympiad which we took.
Thank you.
So you mentioned about the CAM technology.
Yeah.
If the camera does not have the IR sensor, you have to input either your fingerprint ID or your PIN for the continuous monitoring. Don't you think it's a problem? And how many cameras have the IR sensor?
Very few cameras have the IR sensor.
So if that's not the case, then it will be like every 10 minutes I have to input my password or my fingerprint, right?
Yes. So we are requesting, like I had a request that there should be some technologies in FIDO which make it user intervention free, or at least it should be configurable. So that request I have come for the FIDO Alliance, because FIDO Alliance has been built with the thought that for the banking, and in the banking your intention, the user's intention is not to give the password. Whereas in proctoring, the user intention for a remote exam may be to give away the password. So for that, I think a different kind of a thought process is required, though we are using what is available here. But I think a slightly different kind of a thought process in mental walkthrough is required, which has been our journey of implementation also.
But you were running, for example, yeah, I got your point, but you're running like FIDO auth on the client side and for saving your cost.
Yes.
I understand it's a FIDO challenge, but have you thought about writing your own piece of code just running on the client side that is running locally?
No, I have. We tried using OpenCV. On the client side also, there is now WebAssembler available with which you can download the OpenCV on the client side, but that was 8 MB. So that impacted the user experience a lot, and there are areas which have low bandwidth, and in exams people are very, very stressed. So we do not want to add that friction of downloading a library of 8 MB into the system. And we tried other browsers also, but again we realized that downloading itself is stressful for the students. Download doesn't happen correctly, and there are a lot of new challenges which come if we have a client-side code. FIDO does it much faster, stores the skeleton, even for the face off. A Hello protocol stores only the skeleton face features. So it is pretty optimized.
Just one small observation, you might use the word safety.
Yeah.
Safety is for humans and security is for the product.
Okay.
So it has to be security. Secondly, what is the risk involved on taking the image after every 10 minutes? Should it not be a sliding window?
What is the?
Is there any risk that you perceive that every 10 minutes the image is taken, no?
The image is taken every 30 seconds,
Okay.
but the FIDO authentication, because it is manual at the moment, it needs user intervention.
So that's irritating, no, for the person who is appearing in the exam.
I think till we have a better method, and we have analyzed the competitors, so they have even more. They have even more. So we have to look at the market. So competitors have even more disturbance. If you look at the reviews of one of our top competitors, which I think even takes the GRE exam, their pain points are they raise red flags even faster, and they even stop the exam even faster. Their exams don't start at all. So compared to the competitor, because when you are in a market, in a category, you have to look at the experience as to what the competitor is giving versus yours. So
my thing was the students already are under a lot of stress.
Yes.
We should not add to their problems. That was the only.
Yeah, so that is why the purpose is to use, if that has a fingerprint sensor, they can use a fingerprint sensor which is, they don't have to remember. So they can just put it. So they should have they can have something which they can they already have.
The face off would be a better option.
Yeah. Face off also we are doing.
So that's automated, you just do it, the user does not even come to know.
In the face off, there is one challenge that it has an OK, if you notice, when I did face off. So currently Windows Hello needs user intervention for face off also. And I am not sure whether it is a Windows Hello implementation or a FIDO Alliance recommendation. So that is
if you capture a continuous frame,
yeah,
or at intervals, I don't know what way.
I think at intervals it is fine.
But interval has to be keep changing.
Interval has to change based on the.
Student comes to know every 10 minutes they capture. Okay, 9 minutes I have.
But it is a random 10-minute. We will be making a random 10-minute, so you don't know which instant.
Yeah.
It will come up.
So it has to be random.
Yeah.
Just to add quickly, the OK is, it's not part of the FIDO specification, but it is part of the Windows implementation because of the notion of user consent, right? That if you just left the facial recognition without user consent or attention, then you could have malware just scanning your face and going online without the user knowing it's happening. So that's an intentional step on Microsoft's behalf.
So, sir, but consent can be taken before the exam and then it should not come.
Yeah, it can be one time and then
In
remember.
terms of the FIDO thing, that's how it works.
So we have a question over in the corner. Just so you know that he's your competitor.
Yeah.
So if he says something negative, you can revenge later, right?
Okay, so the recent tech like deepfakes and all these things are now evolving in the market. So how this is how your product is going to handle it?
I am not aware of deepfake.
Deepfakes are not, so that's a very hard fact. So anyone can mimic anyone's facial thing, and again it can be replayed also.
So that is the FIDO face auth. It has an IR sensor which can do liveness detection.
No,
But
the thing is, liveness detection, you can lively go also. So liveliness detection is a one part. So against padding attacks, okay, that is fine. But when it comes for deepfakes, so liveliness and all these systems completely fails.
So we have not analyzed this deepfake. Yeah, deepfake as a use case we have not got from the customer. And so we have got issues where the
Because
person
why I'm
put
asking
the
you this
photograph
question
there.
is because we implemented the same as an app, facial recognition app with geographical boundary fencing, everything in our university. So the students find the alternate way to bypass it. So one is padding, okay, we
So then it has
defended
to be a
liveliness and then we
continuous,
went with
I think.
defects.
There has to be a continuous learning curve, like ChatGPT has also come in, so learning whether the content is from ChatGPT or not. So our platform is in a continuous learning mode to what is happening. Like there is mirroring which happens in exams, which we solve. They take the HDMI port, put it somewhere else, and then somebody prompts.
No, that is
I
the
would-
networking part.
No, I would say that that's a question for Microsoft and the camera vendors, right? Because they're the ones that control the pad detection. It's redundant, but, right, it's so she's got a Microsoft Surface there, right? So it's both the Microsoft hardware, software, the infrared camera is one of the features in it in order to help protect against deepfakes, because deepfakes still need a warm body, right? So it's, unless you're doing injection attacks, which is that's a cybersecurity attack, that's a different beast altogether. So the assumption is that the cameras being used and the system being used have that kind of protection built in. Right, that she's relying on out-of-the-box systems. Those systems have to have what you're talking about to protect against it. Otherwise, the bar goes through the roof.
So if any other questions, I'll be here for the rest of the session.
Thanks, Manu, for the presentation.
Hello everyone, and thank you FIDO Alliance for this opportunity. I would quickly like to introduce and then we can jump on to the demos. My name is Ajay Zadav. I am a co-founder and CTO at Ironworks and Rockstar Labs, and I have two of my colleagues, Amit and Sai, who will be helping me in demoing what we have implemented. Ironworks is, this last 6 years we're into blockchain, specifically targeted around decentralized identity solutions. We are work with global customers, providing and building the solutions around verifiable credentials and decentralized identity. We are a small team based out of Pune. The solutions that we built are around another W3C specification of verifiable credentials and self-sovereign identity, which is again another spec of W3C called DID. And most of the other offerings that we have are around the same, W3C, VC, and SSI. So basically, if we, Blockstar is basically a product division of Ironworks, through which we have built a digital credential management platform for issuers, like for example, government agencies may want to issue birth certificates or caste certificates or driving license. Academia can issue degree certificates, which are basically in the form of verifiable credentials, which once issued sits directly into the user's mobile, and giving the end users complete sovereignty on their credentials. So this is a web platform built for the issuers, accompanied with a mobile wallet for the holders, for the users, for the citizens to receive the verifiable credentials and store it locally on the device. So since both the workflows of issuance as well as receiving the credentials are very privacy oriented, so we have decided to use FIDO for securing both these user workflows. Over the last few months, in the last year, we have worked, our team has worked on a FIDO-based solution for 2 key flows in the mobile app. One is the FIDO-based authentication, and another is basically helping users import and export the credential wallet, move the wallet from one device to another, and during the process, use the security layer of FIDO authentication. After our last demo, and once all top 3 finalists were announced, in the last 1 month, we have built another solution for our web platform, whiwhich is based on WebAuthn and passkey-based authentication for our web platform as well. So this is how the login authentication with passkey will be done. Then I will hand over this to my colleague Sai for the demos.
Thank you. Okay, primarily we have 4 flows. One is the command, and the one is the user registration authentication, where FIDO will be used. And second will be the backup and import wallet. And third one is the account recovery part, where I have lost my primary device. So coming to the first two flows, one is the user registration. These both the flows are straightforward. The user will start the registration and enter the user details, register the user with the FIDO server, and there will be a prompt for the authentication, and registration will be done. And the same will be while the user authentication. User will start the app, then there will be a FIDO authentication present, and after authentication is done, then user will be logged into that. Okay, and then the second flow is while importing the wallet. This is the sequence diagram for the same. I will go briefly here. The one will be the new device here, where user will start importing the wallet. Then user will request a new auth code from the platform, and then when the auth code will get from the user ID, not directly they will get from the credible platform. Credible platform inbuilt uses the FIDO server, where I will give my user ID and I will get the 6-digit auth code, and then 6-digit auth code I will enter in the new device. I will get here. Then that new device in primary device, first I have to authenticate that code, so that I am just adding a new authenticator for my old device. So both of my wallets will work, like primary device and new device will work as a credential wallet. And then after the primary device grants the auth code, then the new device will be authorized to now I can add it as a new authenticator. So then I will register and import wallet will be done. So and the second flow will be the same as the import wallet, but it will be while recovering the account. That suppose I don't have the primary device available with me. So what I can do there is also again use the flow of the sending the user ID, that is email in our case, and I will recover the code and through the email, and then I will generate the code, and again I will add new authenticator here, and then I will log in. So for the convenience, we have already recorded a demo. So this is the other SSI wallet in which we have integrated the app as FIDO user authentication. Okay, now I will click on the register, and I will quickly enter my details here and enter my email. Then I will register here with the FIDO server. You are not able to see the screen because here it is a privacy feature from the Android device to hide the. Okay, now I will enter the code, and I will now start creating the wallet. Okay, I am now registered successfully and walked it into the wallet. Now the second flow, while coming through the authentication, when we start the app, there we again call by the user ID. So again here there will be authentication. Again we are adding the screen. Okay. So yes, again we have gone successfully into the wallet. Now when we check that, we also have the capability to what all devices I have registered with the FIDO. Okay, so now you can see that there is one device that is registered, that is the current device, and also the status of the device where it is active. So now we will go to the second flow, where I have to import the wallet into the new device. So the left device is my primary device, that is the first device, and the right device is my secondary device, which is the new, where I want to import the wallet. So on the left device, what I am doing is I am doing a cloud backup here. We also have two options to backup the wallet locally, or we can also backup through cloud using the Google Drive service. this is the passphrase that we use for encryption of the wallet when we export and import. And I confirm the passphrase by entering all the. Now wallet is being encrypted, and okay, now wallet is successfully uploaded to my Google Drive here. Okay, so now I start the process on the second device where I will import the wallet. So now flow will be that as I am already a user on the other app, I will now I will now start the flow by using a login method. So I will enter my email which I will be using for the account. Okay, now here are two options. We can create new wallet or restore your wallet. So as we are going to import the old wallet, we will try to restore our wallet. And also here we have two options to add this device as a new authenticator, or I want to recover my account where I don't have a primary device accessible to me. So actually on the right device is the right device. We have got a code that we got from the FIDO server, as we seen from the flow sequence diagram. That code will not directly, when I enter here code, it will not directly work because it is not an authorized code from my primary authenticator. So what I have to do there is, from the primary authenticator, I have to add that code as this is authenticated for the one-time use. Okay, now I enter the code here, which is shown on the right. And while adding also, it doesn't directly add it the same way. It uses the it uses the biometric here. So we don't directly add the code the same way. And now that this code is authorized, so I can add the new device as a authenticator for the same wallet. And again here comes while importing the wallet, this Google we have added here for the seamless experience of the user to not import the wallet offline with the zip file. So I am now, after the successful authentication, I am importing my wallet. That passphrase we have seen on the left right earlier, that we are using here again to recover my wallet. Okay, now wallet is being loaded. And yes, now wallet is successfully loaded, and we can see that we already also have the old connection that we have done from the first device already present. And also we can see on the right that we have now that there are two authenticators with the same account. The left device and also the right device, that primary and the new device. Okay, and now we go to the fourth flow, that is the import wallet while recovering the account. Suppose I don't have access to my old device and only I have new device. Okay, I will go to the permissions flow. Then I will enter my email, and I will go to the restore my wallet, and I will now go here and recover the FIDO account. And so here the code is there. That code will, in the ideal case, it will come in the email, but now we have shown it here. But what will happen is that as there is no primary device to authenticate, we get this code from the server that I want to recover my account, and now this code will be directly entered here, and I can recover my device from the same flow. And again, as we said that with the Google we are using to import the wallet, and I will import the wallet here. And after this, we have seen that we can importing the wallet successfully. And then when we go to the devices here, FIDO device credentials, you will be able to see that there are now, as we have already registered 2 times the same ID. Now we are having the total 3 devices registered with the same account. What we can do is, we can, as we don't have access to the other 2 devices, we can revoke that credential, that both the devices will not be used as the authenticator anymore. Okay, these were the 4 flows. Okay, now I will hand over to Amit for the second solution that we have for our credible platform.
Yeah, thank you, Sai. Okay, so basically in the third flow we have implemented the passkey. So like 1 month back we just started working on the passkey related stuff with our web platform. So here we basically have a 2 flow, like first will device registration. So currently we implement passkey authentication for our existing user. So who have the already account in our credible platform. In setting they just go to the and active this passkey authentication and all. And second, like we are using a cross platform authentication to generate the passkey and all. Okay, so if we go to the sequence diagram wise, yeah. So basically, like on the credible web platform, we start with the registering passkey flow. So you can call the backend server, FIDO server, and we get a key from them, like basically like the QR code or something like that. So once we scan this QR code in our mobile phone, like it's asked for the biometric authentication. So first is verify the user, and once the user is verified, like on the device itself, platform will generate a key pair. Again, it's a public-private key pair, we can say, and the public key will be returned to the server. So basically, we'll return the public key on the FIDO server, and FIDO will store that public key and register that device. So there is the authentication flow that we registration flow that we have, and second is the authentication flow. So basically, again, like user will open our website where we have given an option like login with passkey. So once user click on that, like again the FIDO, like our browser will show the QR code having some data. And once mobile will scan this QR code, it's asked for the biometric authentication. So once biometric is verified successfully, so basically we'll receive one challenge from the FIDO when we do a authentication flow. So we'll sign that challenge with our private key, which store in our device itself. So we'll sign the challenge and throw back to the FIDO server. So again, FIDO server will verify this challenge by using the public key, which earlier we sharing with while in registration flow. So yeah, once the challenge is resolved, basically FIDO server will give a authentication success. So yeah, if we show the demo here, yeah. So this is our web platform that we have, and on the other side we have mobile device where we are using the cross platform authentication. So here first, this, as I already told you, like currently we are implementing for our existing user. Yeah, we have in our roadmap, like when user try to register in the platform, at that time we set for FIDO registration as well. But currently we have implemented for our existing user. So here user will log in their web application. So like once they log in, like in the account section, we have given an option like where user can set up a passwordless authentication using the passkey and all. So here user will create a passkey. So once it's create a passkey, like we have a given option. Like there are multiple option is given by the FIDO. Like you can use the same machine if you want to use, like if your device support the biometric and all, you can use the same. If you want to use some other device, we can use. So here we'll go on try another flow. Here we'll select a different device. So once we select that, it's give a QR code. So yeah, we scan this QR code. So here in device we are generating the key pair, public and private key. Yeah, so once it's continued, it asks for the authentication. And now the public key will share with the FIDO server which is running on host instance. So yeah, here you can see like device is successfully registered. So currently we are only using the one device, but yeah, here we can give an option to user if they want to use register a multiple device, they can do. So now if I log out from the application and now I try it with the passkey, so here I just have to enter my email address. So once I click on the login with passkey, again it shows the same option, and we use the other device one, and again we'll scan this QR code from the mobile itself, and again like here the challenge will sign with the private key and send back to the FIDO server. So yeah, now once the challenge is resolved, so it will authenticate to the web platform and user can now use our platform. So yeah, here you can see the list of key that is created. So yeah, I think that's it on demo side. And yeah, that's it from us. Yeah, do you have any question or?
Hello.
Yeah.
So Amit, in the passkey demo, the registration step requires someone to, as you have shown in the flow, verify himself, right? Now, when you want to create a passkey for yourself, right? How does the system know whether it's Amit or Sai?
Okay.
So we are not doing user verification yet. I mean that's a additional step which you can have user verification done using other methods.
Right. No, the responsibility lies on the solution.
Yeah.
Right. That when we are creating something which is so strong, as strong as passkey, the basis of that cannot be ignored.
Yeah.
Right. So I have to make sure that it is Amit only for whom we are creating the passkey.
Yeah.
The user logs in using the existing username and password. So I mean that's
phishable, right?
That's phishable. Yeah.
That's phishable. So
it's basically it's a transition from password based into passwordless using passkey.
Okay, I think we all have to think about it, and the industry players will also tell us as to how this can be solved. This is a problem because we are not getting into a situation where the users will directly come to FIDO, right? They are already using some authentication mechanism, and in all probability they will have to be migrated. And we know the volume we are talking about, it is India, right? So we have to make sure that we are doing this migration in the right fashion and with 100% confirmation that Amit is Amit and not Sai.
Regarding the recovery part, I saw that if somebody get the credential through which it is going to recover, the simply username and the password, right? Then I can restore this vault on a new device. So is there any verification or some authentication where this can be prevented from being exploited?
It's probably the same question, I guess, where the user verification has to be done. So services like on FIDO or
Can you use the mic, please?
Yeah. Maybe services like on FIDO where external user ID verification can be done, just to be sure that okay, it's the same user that who is claiming to be. That would help.
Yeah, because in today's time to get the credential is not a big thing. You can get it from dark web or other sources, right? Then it was a challenge.
Very.
Thank you.
So I got it right. It's an Android-based application.
Yeah.
Is it bound to any web browser?
So the wallet which we are seeing, it's a decentralized. So we cannot access those wallet on browser because every data credential that you received on
From
SSI.
the Android phone through the app. App is using some browser.
No, app is not using.
So native one.
It's a native app. Yeah.
Then it's okay. But otherwise, had it been using a browser, I can always introduce a own browser.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
You're using FIDO to basically log into the app. Are you using additional authentication to ensure that the certificates that you're downloading actually belongs to the user who is logging in?
No, not right.
Okay. So basically, I can download anyone's certificate.
No, certificate we cannot.
Which credentials are you saying about?
No. I think your wallet actually stores IDs and certificates, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what kind of authentication you're using to ensure that the person who is logging in is the one who is whose IDs and certificates are being downloaded?
Okay, so basically we are using the decentralized wallet. So everything is peer to peer. So for example, any government authority wants to issue me a credential, they send me an invite like connection invitation, and they can directly issue credential in my wallet. So it's a decentralized. So we are not getting this data from server or anything.
And your wallet's primary ID is your email.
Yeah.
How secure do you think is that?
That's secure as the authentication provided by the platforms.
Yeah. The same problem. You mentioned about the private key.
Yeah.
Where is your private key stored?
So it's stored on the device itself.
Device where?
Yeah, in system, because FIDO it's provide when we authenticate when we give a biometric, it will generate a key pair from the device itself.
Okay. And where in the secure zone or not secure?
Yeah, it's in secure keychain, we can say.
Then at least some security it is getting generated through the device.
Yeah, so that's why we are asked for the biometric. When we authenticate with biometric, it will open the system keychain, it will generate the key pair and return those key pair data to the user. So that's the FIDO how it works internally.
Okay, then, yeah, thank you. Thank you. We are provide provide the multiple model and passwordless service for all types of devices, including the IoT ones. So this is us. Basically, like David first said that for now, FIDO supports these. But are these all for now? Just to address that, we bring in this where we can offer the same for IoT, the ones including door locks, car locks, car locks, remote machines, and even like the SSH. The SSH are servers which don't have a web browser. Okay. So basically the same thing, the passwords we can stuff. We are providing the FIDO 2 services to the SSH as well, including the IoT ones which will be instrumental for the physical and digital assets both. Like our features include this has a dashboard. We use FR. For additional step like along with the FIDO. Then we have APIs and SDKs for multiple devices. We tested on a door lock, a metaverse, and one SSH, one SSH server. Our target market includes these institutions as well as the OEMs of the smart locks and the IoT ones. So why FIDO? Because it gives us the R3 and the IL2. Last time we kept IL3, but it was wrong. We accept that. FIDO is implemented with a web view. We provide all types of SDKs for ours. Like SSH, also we can give admin dashboard logs. So instead of this, let's see it in action. So basically, this device, it is just a node MCU, which we have, which won't support the WebAuthn, obviously. Let me just put it onto the battery. Yeah. I just exit this and I'll show the screen of my phone. Yeah. So that's when I have. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, I can. Yeah.
Please use a mic.
Yeah, so now we can see a code per user. So we just have to enter the same code 153927. Each blinking means we have the request for this from this IP address. So we can allow, like FR has been intentionally turned off for now because we are not allowed to use the cams. So if it's off, so it's
because it's a Samsung policy,
yeah.
So they tapped it. Yeah.
And next we have to use the FIDO key. Yeah, so logged in, and this light is now glowing, which we already mentioned. That. Move up a bit. Yeah. Just a second. Use the slide because of the zoom. Yeah. So green light steady on means it's successful. Yeah. Yeah. Green light steady on means it's in. So for the next, so it's the so it's the this so it's the IoT thing which is a simple like a node MCU and nothing much. Next we can show for the SSH. For example, I'll just go in live. Just yeah. So we'll SSH to this VM. Yeah. So now it asks for my user, which I will give, and then this request will come. Yeah. This is my SSH. This is my SSH request, which I can allow in the same way. So now it's logged in. Similar things we have for similar thing we have metaverse thing, which we can show again.
So this is our custom built metaverse engine, runs in Babylon.
Yeah. Yeah, so the name is also fetched from the backend. Next, we also have zero touch login, which I have to show from the video because my cam is blocked. Okay, so if this code is shown, this code is shown, then it then the same request is sent into the app, and the app can access that. This would be useful full in applications like the applications like the Alexa with the cams and stuff. Like we can type it in the email ID, but we can still show the QR. So our users are shown like this in the dashboard. Sign up process is extremely simple. Everything is logged. Like that's an old log, so I'll just show you the new thing which we have updated. Just a second. Now we also log the IP address and the ISP. And the ISP of both the requester and the client, both. Then next is like how we achieved the IL2. Yeah. So basically, this is what. It's what Leibniz says. We need two pieces of strong evidences to confirm that. And these two strong evidences include our FR and the FIDO key. Same thing here. Yeah, same thing. For FR, we use the arc-face model with an accuracy of 99.81%, and it's like cited from this paper. These are our indicators, like according to the FIDO authenticated security index. Then the biometric system should implement PAD, for which we develop an in-house centralized PAD based on the efficient net B3, which gives a 93.89% of accuracy. This is how we get L3 with the multi-factor cryptographic device. Then it is like what this is. This is phones with the TPMs, or the AC, AC can give us a multi-factor cryptographic device. Security keys like the UD bio, with the fingerprint sensor also gives the same. Of course, without the TPM, TPM gives a multi-factor cryptographic software, which gives us L2. And for example, like mine one does not have a fingerprint. It will give us L1. Our remaining challenges are these. And the last time the judges just had these feedbacks, which we hope that we have fixed the same. Thank you.
Take some questions.
Yeah.
So, got it. Couple. There we go. Check. There we go. Couple. In the case of, well, you should two variations. Sorry. In the case of doing the SSH logon and the Metaverse logon, how were those connected to the authentication app? Right, you initiated an authentication in something and it somehow knew, go talk to the phone.
Like our backend is doing that. We have a VM, we have a VM hosted on Azure, which is sending these to the phone.
Okay, the metaverse one again, in the case of SSH though, you must have had to plug in somewhere, like is there a registration process that the user has to go through?
Yes.
Okay, and that registration, all it does is establish the connection to the authentication app. Okay. The second question has to do with the facial recognition. If you use facial recognition off an Android or a Windows device, it's going to use the built-in camera function to do that. But you're talking about having a high quality facial recognition. Where does that come into play?
It's in the it's in the cloud. So the picture is sent back to the cloud. Template is already saved in the cloud. It checks in the cloud.
But it's not part of the FIDO authentication then? So you're, in addition to the FIDO authentication, you're using facial recognition?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we run our deep learning model in the backend. So we have our own GPU server, there we hosted that.
But not part as FIDO though? That's what I was trying to clarify. It's not being used in the FIDO authentication step? Okay. Thank you.
So the biometric of user will be stored on cloud. So the biometric of a user will be stored on cloud.
Yes, it is like encrypted and stored on cloud.
As per Aadhaar Act, you can't store biometrics.
So, okay, so let us assume. So if we are taking this as a compliance, so what we can do is still we implemented Aadhaar for everyone. So we can have a call with the
anybody's biometric.
Okay.
At the most can be stored in a small piece which the control has to be with the user.
No, the biometric data in the sense what we are storing is only the feature part.
Still.
Only the basic feature part. So
somebody steals it, it can be used for authentication with the Aadhaar service. Aadhaar Act won't allow for it.
Can the feature be extrapolated again and created, reconstructed?
That also is possible.
or else we can interface that with Aadhaar backend, and again from there we can have a call and we can verify. That is also possible.
Then you won't need to become AUA or something like that.
So when we are going for a compliance, then we have to go for all these steps because a lot of companies are doing that.
As such, this is not.
No, as such, what we are proposing is just a POC, stating that this kind of technology can be implemented along with the government compliance.
Yeah.
That is what our claim is.
Compliance has to be seen along with what
Yeah.
and you propose a
Absolutely, I agree. I totally agree, sir. This point I totally agree. So even we had a big conversation about the storing a particular identity in the database. What happens if our administrator itself is compromised? That's a big question. So we have, since it's for a POC, this is so-called, this is the workflow. So if we are going along with the entire compliance, we can have a complete, whatever the guidelines government is having, we can go with that.
Okay, Katish.
Just help me understand, I mean, the whole idea of FIDO is to have local storage of the identity, right? Whichever biometric, and verify locally. And you storing it on the cloud, so I'm not getting that.
What FIDO does is it links the user's identity to his device. That means if the phone with the screen lock is compromised, the entire identity is compromised. But for us, we still have something which won't compromise that.
Phone with the screen lock is compromised. I don't agree with that because I have my biometrics stored here, right?
Yeah.
And if I just do a pattern on or a screen on, that doesn't mean that my fingerprints are.
I mean to say that if the phone is compromised, and as well as the adversarial actor also knows your screen lock. In that case, it's an issue.
As far as what you store on the device, it's a reconstructed image.
Yeah.
So for Aadhaar authentication, you have to use a raw image and not a reconstructed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mrigesh. I am Chief Product Officer and founder of Trilbit. So today I'll just talk about our FIDO journey. And so just to give you a little bit of background, before Trilbit, I was a geoscientist working with Schlumberger. And there we got the idea because me and my co-founder, we are from a geoscientist background. So, and we were thinking that the world is moving towards a way where anything in your wallet, whether it's a keychain, whether it's your card, will be replaced by a single device. And that was the vision. So we thought how to make efficient connection between devices is a very interesting thing. So till then we are using Bluetooth, we are using NFC, but you require a chip. You require special hardware. So we thought that how about we use existing hardware and create a protocol on top of that. And that's why we started using sound waves. So what we do is in Trilbit, we created our proprietary algorithm where you can send data between two devices just using ultrasonic sound waves. And so you can think us as a acoustic NFC, acoustic Bluetooth, like that. So, so then, some of our clients are Oyo, Chalo, and I'll give some examples. So, and I'm giving you this background because it's important how we interpret FIDO. So, for example, take example of one of our clients, Chalo. Chalo is a major, bus company where you can purchase bus tickets on their app, and then you can ride on board. So they are live in multiple cities in India, but I'll give you example of Mumbai, best buses, like the biggest bus service in India. So what Chalo, how they are using us is basically their app creates a ticket, and the user goes to the conductor, and the transfer happens. So you don't have to worry about whether the phone has NFC or not. The transfer will happen. It will just act like NFC. And it can be used in multiple type of application. So just to visualize this. So you just put your phone nearby and you're validated. So it just acts like NFC. but there is no NFC. We are using this transfer of information using just ultrasonic sound waves, because every device has a microphone and every device has a speaker. So if you see what we thought is there are two pieces of equation. One is how you do the connectivity part, and then second piece is the authentication part. Now we were solving the puzzle of connectivity, but most of our clients like Cello and others were using us for authentication. So our natural question was, why not build the whole system, right? Why not authentication as well? And that's why we started looking at FIDO and reading more about FIDO. And so that's why we created using WebAuthn. We create on top of it we used our technology and we created a demo. And this was the demo. Till then, passkey was not a thing. 2021, I mean, we just used WebAuthn. So using our technology, we established the proximity, and then it invoked the WebAuthn, and then you use your finger tap, and then that's how you authenticate it. So your phone will play a sonic tone, that part is received, it invokes WebAuthn, you give fingerprint, and you're authenticated. So that's how we were using it. And we got the Bronze Award, and this is our CEO, Bhaskar, co-founder, and we were declared as one of the winners of Global FIDO Developer Challenge 2021. So then we started looking at FIDO deeper, and we started realizing its potential and how it can change the authentication space. We started thinking more and more about it, and that's why we started being part of FIDO. And then earlier we participated in FIDO Developer Challenge. Then we participated in Authenticate Conference last year as a FIDO member. We had our booth as well. The Authenticate Conference was a revelation to us. We knew about passkeys, but when we were there, we realized what passkey is. What ChatGPT is doing to AI, what UPI has done to payments in India, that's what passkey is going to do for authentication. There are certain challenges, for sure, but this is the future, and the passwordless is the future. And if I talk from the India perspective, I believe, because of UPI, financially and our financial applications are way ahead than the rest of the world. If we start adopting passkeys right now and create our authentication layer, it will bring a fundamental change how we function as a country. And that's why I believe, really believe that passkey is the future, and passwordless are future. So that's why we started doing some changes in our product roadmap as well. And so we thought, because we implemented passkeys ourselves, there are some things. So for example, if you have developer resources, it is easy, or still it will take you 3 more months, 4 months, 6 months based on your company size. What we are building, and right now it's currently in beta, SoundAuth, our new product, is basically you can take SoundAuth APIs and SDK, and whatever if you have an existing customer, we can make your website and app passkey ready in minutes rather than months. So you just use our APIs and all the things. For example, it will save your development cost, it will manage the UX part, it will manage the user management part, it will manage the accounts management and recovery part. because we believe in the future that if we want to end up at the passwordless stage where where we wipe away passwords from the world entirely, it might take 4 years or 5 years. It should be very easy to implement, and that's why right now we are working on a sound of product, and later on we believe our core technology. Oh, sorry. Our core technology, data or sound, with the implementation of passkey will be very powerful, because it's not just the web authentication. Any type of device, like for example, phone to kiosk type of interaction can happen as well. Yeah, I know. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Why does your solution needs passkey? Isn't the simple FIDO authentication enough for you?
Yeah, FIDO authentication is enough, but I think because of passkey, passkey is a evolution of WebAuth. I mean, we were doing the same thing, but for example, let's say you create a passkey in Apple and then it syncs with your other devices. That's a great feature to have. So just having a WebAuthn and using our solution, there's a product there, right? But at the same time, passkey gives you a lot of freedom. And what we believe, and this has to be seen, I think we can build with passkey. There is still a friction of Bluetooth and a QR code. What we believe is we can bring more number of devices if we are using sound also in parallel to those. Like, you don't have to change anything, use QR, use Bluetooth, and use sound, and it will bring many more devices.
So, I mean, is it right to understand that sound can also be an authenticator?
Yeah.
Then why are you not going for registering this with FIDO as an authenticator?
We are trying to do that.
Okay. So that's a forward-looking step.
Yes.
Right. So if you want to really make it global in terms of adoption, and you think that there is, as you rightly said, the ease of implementation and adoption would increase, then I think the registration of sound as an authenticator is important. Otherwise, enterprises would look this as proprietary, and this would not fit into FIDO being global and open, and you being proprietary.
Yeah.
So suppose like multiple users are using at the same time. My sound, my phone's sound can reach his computer, and his can reach mine, and his can reach mine at the same time. At the same time, and also some interference can be there for the same reason. So how do you approach that?
So the interference part, we solve it using our proprietary signal processing algorithms, because that has been a challenge, and that's why it took some time to build it. It sounds very simple, but if you start thinking about the interference and how the multipath is affecting the signal quality, it's a very challenging thing to solve. But we solved it really well, and that's why in Open Bus in Mumbai, people are using this as an authentication. So, I mean, that is the loudest environment you can think of. Also, we did it with a CSK stadium where it was a pilot, but what we did was using their speaker system, we played sound and all the phones synchronized and flashlight dance kind of thing happened. It was a demo, but it was a very nice demo. But what it proved was the range was 100 meters, right? And at the same time, with stadium noise, we were able to, remove the interference and the signal noise. Great.
Thank you, everyone. The presentations today were really good. The first thing I want to say is we had a chance to see all of these previously in earlier demos, and the best thing I could say about it all is how much better they all got. Every one of the groups improved the quality of both what they were developing and their presentation, so that the message came across much more clearly and did a much better job of highlighting the thing they were trying to fix as well as how they were fixing it. So congratulations to everybody from that standpoint. It was really encouraging to see the growth of the contestants along the way. So that's great. So I'm going to start by announcing the winner. And I just want to say that what set this group apart, I would say, is first, what they've developed is more complete, I'd say, than some of the others. And it also was, I'd say, I believe, the most innovative use of FIDO, because it took the core functionality a step beyond basic authentication. And so that's Manu and her group. Come on up and get your time.